Every morning at 6:15, a young elephant walks 2 kilometers through the jungle, carrying flowers to leave at a butcher shop in a small Thai village. What could possibly connect this wild animal to this place? And why has she never missed a single day in 6 months? The morning sun barely touched the sky over the small Thai village of Ban Ta Klang when shopkeepers started opening their stores. Somchai Phongshri unlocked the metal shutters of his butcher shop, the same shop his grandfather had built over 50 years ago. But before he could prop open his wooden door, he saw what he had seen every single morning for the past 6 months. Fresh flowers lay in a neat pile on his doorstep, arranged with care that no human hand could have managed. At exactly 6:15 each morning, a young elephant emerged from the forest edge that bordered the village. Her name was Molly, which meant Jasmine, and she was only 4 years old. In her trunk, she carried wildflowers, frangipani blossoms, or whatever colorful plants she could find in the jungle. She walked with purpose down the dirt road, past sleeping houses and closed shops, heading straight for Somchai's butcher shop every single time. Molly would stop in front of the weathered wooden door and lower her trunk slowly. She placed the flowers on the ground with gentle movements, arranging them with the tip of her trunk until they formed a perfect circle. Then she would back away 3 steps, her trunk swaying side to side like she was praying. For exactly 10 minutes, she would stand there, completely still, her large brown eyes fixed on the door. Her breathing was soft and steady. Her ears barely moved. After 10 minutes passed, she would turn around and walk back into the forest, disappearing into the thick green trees. The villagers had watched this happen so many times, they no longer seemed surprised. Tourists came from faraway cities, arriving before dawn with cameras and phones, hoping to catch the moment when Molly brought her flowers. Local news teams had filmed her dozens of times. The videos spread across the internet, gathering millions of views from people around the world. Some people called it a miracle. Others said it proved that animals were smarter than humans believed. A few whispered that it showed reincarnation was real. But Somchai never talked about it. He never smiled for the cameras. He never explained why this elephant came to his door. Dr. Anong Sawati had been watching Molly for 3 months straight. She was a wildlife doctor from the Thai Elephant Conservation Center, and she had never seen anything like this before. She had observed the ritual 47 times, writing down every detail in her notebook. She had talked to every person in the village, asking if anyone knew where Molly came from, or why she did this strange thing. But the more she learned, the more confused she became. Molly was not from any elephant camp nearby. She did not belong to any sanctuary or zoo. She appeared to be completely wild, living alone in the forest. Yet she walked through the village without fear. She never bothered anyone. She never ate from gardens or knocked over market stalls. She came only for the flowers, only for the butcher shop, only at 6:15 in the morning. Dr. Anong had tried following Molly back into the jungle, but the elephant seemed to know when someone was tracking her. She would change direction suddenly, slipping into thick brush where humans could not walk. The doctor had set up hidden cameras along the forest paths, hoping to see where Molly slept and whether other elephants lived with her. The camera footage showed something that made Dr. Anong's heart hurt. Molly traveled alone, living in a small clearing about 2 kilometers from the village. No other elephants appeared in any of the videos. Not one. This worried Dr. Anong more than anything else. Elephants need family. They need other elephants to teach them, protect them, and keep them company. Young elephants especially need their mothers and aunts and grandmothers to show them how to survive. Without a family group, most young elephants die or go crazy from loneliness. Yet Molly looked healthy. Her skin was smooth and clean. Her eyes were bright and clear. She moved with confidence and seemed to have a purpose that kept her going, despite being completely alone. What Dr. Anong did not know yet was that Somchai held the secret to understanding Molly's behavior. The truth behind her daily flower offerings was hidden in a tragedy that happened 7 years ago. A story so sad that it would explain everything about why this young elephant refused to forget. But what could possibly connect a wild elephant to a butcher shop? And why would she keep this ritual going with such perfect consistency? Dr. Anong's patience finally broke through Somchai's silence on a hot afternoon in late July. She had noticed that the butcher always looked upset after Molly's morning visits. His hands would shake slightly as he arranged the meat in his display case. His eyes looked red and wet, like he had been crying but was trying to hide it. When she approached him that day, not asking scientific questions, but simply asking if he was okay, Somchai finally decided to tell the truth. He invited her to the back room of his shop, a small space filled with old family photographs and a Buddhist altar with burning incense. He pointed to a picture frame on the wall, its colors faded from age and sunlight. The photograph showed a much younger Somchai, standing next to a beautiful woman, holding a baby girl. Next to them stood a huge adult elephant, painted with colorful designs and covered in flowers. The elephant's eyes looked gentle and wise, just like Molly's eyes. The elephant in the photograph was named Bua, Somchai said, his voice cracking with emotion. She had belonged to his wife's family for 3 generations, working in the logging business until Thailand made it illegal in 1989. When that happened, many elephant owners had to sell their animals or send them to work in tourist camps because they could not afford to feed them anymore. But Somchai's wife, Siraporn, refused to let Bua go. The elephant had been her best friend since childhood and was part of their family. Somchai explained that he had not always been a butcher. 20 years earlier, he had worked as an elephant handler with his wife. They took care of Bua and 3 other elephants owned by their extended family. They made money by giving rides to tourists and performing in cultural shows. It was not perfect work, but it kept Bua fed and healthy and allowed them to stay together. Their daughter, Ploy, grew up playing with the elephant every single day, learning to talk to Bua through gentle touches and special sounds that only they understood. 7 years ago, when Ploy was just 12 years old, something terrible happened that destroyed their family forever. During the monsoon season, the rain came down harder than anyone had ever seen. The river near their village rose higher and higher, then suddenly broke through its banks and flooded all the low areas where families kept their elephants. Somchai and Siraporn were at the market buying food when the flood hit. By the time they ran back home, the water was up to their chests and still rising fast. They could hear Bua making loud trumpet sounds from half a kilometer away, mixed with their daughter's screams. Ploy had been with Bua when the flood came, trying to move the elephant to higher ground like they had practiced during other flood warnings. But this time the water moved too fast and too strong. Somchai and several neighbors fought through the rushing current to reach them. What they saw would give Somchai nightmares for the rest of his life. Ploy was holding onto Bua's back, and the elephant was struggling to keep her trunk above the brown water as the current tried to sweep them both away. The flood had pushed them against a fence, and Bua was using her huge body like a shield to protect the child from the worst of the rushing water. The rescuers reached Ploy first, pulling her to safety on higher ground where the water could not touch her. But when they turned to help Bua, the fence broke under the pressure of all that water and floating debris. The elephant was swept downstream, vanishing into the churning brown mess. They searched for 3 days, finally finding Bua's body 5 kilometers downriver, wedged against a concrete bridge. Even in death, her body was positioned like she had been trying to swim back upstream, back toward the place where she had last seen Ploy. The sadness that came after was almost too much for Somchai's family to bear. Siraporn fell into a depression so deep that she could barely eat or sleep or talk. Ploy stopped speaking for 6 months, her mind broken by watching her beloved elephant die trying to save her. The hospital bills for treating Ploy's sickness, from the cold water and her broken mind, plus losing all their money from Bua and their tourism work, forced Somchai to find a new job. He took over his uncle's butcher shop, a choice that made him feel guilty every single day. What Somchai had never told anyone until now was what really happened during the flood. In those desperate moments when rescuers were trying to save both Ploy and Bua, they only had one rope, and it was only long enough to tie around one of them. Somchai made the choice to save his daughter first, planning to go back for Bua right away. But the fence broke before they could return, and Bua was lost to the flood. He had chosen his child's life over the elephant's life, which any parent would do, but it filled him with crushing guilt that never went away. Dr. Anong listened without saying a word, tears running down her cheeks, but she was confused about how this connected to Molly. Somchai's hand shook as he pulled out another photograph, this one newer and clearer. It showed Bua with a small baby elephant pressed against her side, taken just a few months before the flood happened. The baby was Molly, and she had seen everything that happened to her mother on that terrible day. But how had she found Somchai's shop, and why did she bring flowers every single morning? Dr. Anong's mind raced as she tried to understand what Somchai had just told her. Molly had been barely 1 year old when the flood took Bua's life. The doctor knew that baby elephants stay with their mothers for many years, learning how to find food and water and how to stay safe. Losing a mother so young should have killed Molly. Yet somehow, she had survived alone in the forest for 3 years and had started this mysterious ritual of bringing flowers to a place connected to her mother's death. Somchai kept talking, his voice so quiet that Dr. Anong had to lean close to hear him. After Bua died, the family held a Buddhist funeral ceremony, which many Thai people do for elephants they love. They placed flowers on Bua's body before the cremation, traditional funeral flowers like jasmine, frangipani, and marigolds. These were the exact same types of flowers that Molly brought every morning. During the ceremony, Molly had stood nearby, reaching out her little trunk to touch her mother's body over and over, refusing to leave even when handlers tried to pull her away. The family could not afford to keep Molly after losing Bua. A baby elephant needs special care, expensive food, and someone watching her all the time. With no money, and Siraporn too sad and sick to function, they made the painful choice to send Molly to a conservation center in northern Thailand. The elephant sanctuary agreed to take her for free because they understood how tragic the situation was. The day they loaded Molly onto the transport truck was the second worst day of Somchai's life. He watched the confused baby elephant reaching her trunk back toward them as the truck drove away. But Molly never made it to the sanctuary. Somewhere during the 10-hour journey, the young elephant escaped from the transport truck. The handlers said that during a rest stop, Molly had somehow opened the gate latch, which should have been impossible for such a young elephant, and ran into the forest. Huge search teams looked for her everywhere, but Molly had disappeared completely. Everyone thought she had died in the wild, too young and alone to survive without her mother or a herd to protect her. That was 3.5 years ago. Somchai had cried for Molly, believing she was another victim of the tragedy that had ruined his family. Then, 6 months ago, he arrived at his shop before the sun came up and found a small pile of frangipani flowers arranged carefully in front of his door. He thought maybe a customer left them or some children were playing a joke. But the next morning there were more flowers, and this time, he came early enough to see the elephant placing them there. His heart almost stopped beating when he recognized Molly. She had grown much bigger, but her eyes were exactly the same, and she had a small notch in her left ear from an injury she got as a baby. Somchai walked toward her slowly, saying her name softly, and Molly's reaction proved it was really her. She reached out her trunk to touch his face gently, making a soft rumbling sound that Bua used to make when she greeted family members. The moment was so powerful and emotional that Somchai fell to his knees and sobbed. Dr. Anong asked the question that seemed impossible to answer. How had Molly found him? Somchai's shop was not near the family's old home, or anywhere the elephant had lived before. He explained that after taking over the butcher shop, he had moved his family to a small house behind the shop, trying to start fresh in a completely different area of the province. There was no way Molly could have followed his scent or recognized any landmarks. Yet somehow, across dozens of kilometers of land she had never seen, the young elephant had tracked down the man connected to her mother's death. What shocked Dr. Anong even more was when Somchai told her about the timing of Molly's first visit. The flowers started exactly 3 years to the day after Bua died, on the anniversary of the funeral ceremony. Molly had somehow kept track of this important date in her mind and chose that specific day to begin her ritual. In the 6 months since then, she had never missed a single morning, always arriving at exactly the same time, with her carefully chosen flowers. Somchai's voice broke as he explained what he thought the flowers meant. In Thai culture, bringing flowers to a grave or memorial is how you show respect and love for someone who has died. Molly was not bringing flowers to Somchai as a person, he believed. She was performing a funeral ritual for her mother at the place she connected with the humans who were part of Bua's final moments. The elephant was keeping a memorial practice alive, honoring her mother's memory with daily offerings, unable to understand death but knowing that something precious had been taken away forever. Dr. Anong felt everything she knew about animal behavior being turned upside down. The level of memory, emotion, and ritual that Molly showed went far beyond what most scientists believed was possible for animals. This was not simple training or instinct. This was real grief, true remembrance, and maybe even a kind of spirituality that crossed the barrier between species. But if Molly had found some kind of peace in this ritual, why did she still live alone in the forest? And what would happen if this daily memorial was ever interrupted? Dr. Anong made a choice that would change everything about her research and Molly's future. Instead of trying to capture the elephant or move her to a sanctuary, she would study this unique behavior exactly where it was happening and work with Somchai to keep Molly healthy while respecting her remarkable ritual. She brought together a small team of researchers and elephant experts to check Molly's health, follow her movements, and record what might be the most complex example of animal grief ever seen. The team's discoveries over the next few months were amazing. Molly had created a territory in the forest with several important locations, each one serving a specific purpose. She had found an area with plenty of food, clean water, and natural shelter from rain and sun. Even more surprising, she had built what looked like a memorial site in a clearing near where she slept. She had arranged stones and branches in a circle surrounded by flowers, almost identical to the offering she left at Somchai's shop. Through careful watching and hidden camera footage, the researchers documented Molly's daily routine. She would wake up before dawn and spend time at her forest memorial. Then she would gather fresh flowers before making the journey to the village. After finishing her ritual at the shop, she would return to the forest, spending her day eating, bathing in mud, and doing normal elephant things. But unlike wild elephants, she showed no interest in finding other elephants or trying to join the distant herds that sometimes passed through the area. Dr. Anong shared these findings with Somchai during one of their many talks in his shop. The butcher had become more open about Molly's visits, finally accepting that hiding the story helped no one. He had even started to find comfort in the elephant's daily presence, seeing it not as a reminder of his guilt, but as a connection to the family he had lost. His wife Siraporn had died 2 years earlier, her sadness and grief making her too weak and sick to keep living. Their daughter Ploy had moved to Bangkok for university, leaving Somchai alone with his memories and his butcher shop. The big change came on a morning that was different from all the others. Molly arrived at her usual time, but instead of leaving after her 10-minute vigil, she stayed at the shop. Her trunk reached toward the door, like she was waiting for something specific. Somchai, feeling that something important was happening, did something he had never done before. He brought out a bundle of jasmine flowers that he had bought the night before and walked slowly toward Molly, offering them to her. The elephant's response was immediate and filled with emotion. She took the flowers gently in her trunk, then reached out to touch Somchai's face, his hands, his chest, exploring him with the same careful attention that Bua used to show. Somchai began speaking to her softly in Thai, saying he was sorry for what happened to her mother, explaining the impossible choice he had to make, telling her about Ploy and Sirapurn and how much they had all loved Bua. Molly listened, her large eyes locked on his face, occasionally making soft rumbling sounds that vibrated through both their bodies. Dr. Anong watched from far away, recording this breakthrough moment on her camera. What happened next challenged everything she thought she knew about elephants and forgiveness. Molly carefully took the flowers Somchai had given her and combined them with the flowers she had brought that morning, creating one larger pile. Then, using her trunk with incredible precision, she divided the flowers into 2 equal portions. She placed one portion on the ground in front of the shop like she always did. But the other portion she gently placed in Somchai's hands, curling his fingers around the stems with the tip of her trunk. The meaning was clear to everyone watching. Molly was not just keeping a memorial. She was offering healing. By sharing the flowers, she was including Somchai in the ritual of remembrance, showing that his grief was just as real and important as her own. In that moment, the wall between human guilt and animal forgiveness melted away, replaced by a shared understanding that they had both loved Bua and both suffered terribly from losing her. From that day on, the ritual changed forever. Molly still arrived each morning with flowers, but now Somchai would come out of his shop with his own offerings. They would arrange the flowers together, a joint memorial to the elephant who had meant everything to both of them. Tourists still came to watch, but now they saw something even more beautiful than before. 2 broken hearts, one human and one elephant, separated by species, but connected by love and loss, finding peace through shared remembrance. Dr. Anong's research paper about Molly's behavior was published in a famous science journal, starting conversations around the world about elephant emotions, memory, and culture. But for Somchai, the attention and recognition meant far less than the peace he had found through his daily time with Molly. The guilt that had eaten at him for 7 years started to fade, replaced by thankfulness that Molly had survived, that she remembered, and that she had somehow found it in her elephant heart to share her grief instead of carrying it alone. 3 years later, Molly still keeps her daily ritual, though now she no longer comes by herself. The researchers had worked with wildlife officials to carefully introduce her to a small group of rescued female elephants, creating a new herd that understood and accepted her need for the morning memorial journey. The other elephants learned to wait at the forest edge while Molly completed her ritual, and sometimes they would walk with her part way, giving her the family structure she had been missing for so long. Somchai, now in his 60s, continues to meet Molly each morning. Their flower ceremony is a fixed point of beauty in a world that keeps changing. He has trained his nephew to take over the butcher shop eventually, and he volunteers at the local elephant sanctuary, sharing Bua and Molly's story with visitors and teaching about the deep emotional lives of elephants. On the anniversary of Bua's death each year, a special ceremony is held at Somchai's shop. Villagers, researchers, and elephant lovers from around the world come to attend. Molly receives her favorite treats, and hundreds of flowers are arranged in beautiful displays that honor the elephant who gave everything to save a child. Ploy returns from Bangkok for this ceremony, placing her own flowers and touching the daughter of the elephant who saved her life, completing a circle of love and remembrance that connects generations. Molly's story spread far beyond Thailand, becoming a symbol of how grief crosses species barriers, how memory keeps love alive beyond death, and how the simple act of bringing flowers can heal the deepest wounds of loss.